everybody. Welcome tonight, January 3rd. It's a beautiful Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to start you guys off with a beautiful metaphor tonight and an obsession that I have with the giant Asian hornet. I know it's weird, but these things are pretty actually incredible. Not only are they giant and they devour honeybees, which kind of sucks because I love honeybees, and they are a threat to North America. But if you guys can keep with me, um, if you can imagine the honeybees being the fiat money system and Bitcoin being the giant Asian hornet, you can kind of get this analogy. So the only way that the honeybees can survive these Asian hornets, which are armored and they just like go through ants and like decapitate them as they in search of the larva of the honeybees, right? That's what they eat. And then they basically what the Asian hornet does, if you guys don't know, and the reason why I'm like so obsessed with these things, these are fascinating as far as like science and goes, is that they take the larva from the honeybees and then they bring it back to their hive, and then they feed it to their babies, and then the babies, these giant Asian hornets babies, they secrete a enzyme, which is basically every single known amino acid that we know of in one like little tiny serum, right? So they secrete this like super hornet juice, okay? And the Japanese are actually really famous for there was a Summer Olympics where all of them were chanting like wasp juice, wasp juice, wasp juice. And like this is what they're talking about. They're talking about these like the secretion of the giant Asian hornets. And they're just basically like it's every single known amino acid to man. And it's like fascinating to me. Okay. Uh, so anyways, if Bitcoin is in this situation, the giant Asian hornet, and the fiat money system is represented in this metaphor by the bees, then the only way for the bees to defend themselves is actually this ball formation. Okay, so they start swarming and getting crazy, and it gets to such a frenetic energy in the hive when these things are attacking, right? Because they're protecting the queen, that they surround. The only way for the honeybees to defend themselves is to get the scout, right? So like it's not even like the full-on invasion of the giant Asian hornets. They can only defend this thing if they get the scout and they can prevent that pheromone from being released. So they'll actually surround the hornet and cook it alive by just beating the wings so fast, and they create this like little balls of heat, right, to kill the hornet. In the end, this is kind of frugalist, right? So like Bitcoin still will prevail from the money system surrounding it in these early days, and then cooking the individual, but the hive and the swarm is still relentless and is going to basically destroy this hive sooner than later. So I wanted to give you guys that beautiful analogy tonight. I don't know why I was thinking about that, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. Litecoin Laden is here for you and the Litecoin community in general, because I think it's the way of the future, and I think it's a way that everybody's communicating nowadays. Like, we're not sending gold across the border, right? If you have $5,000 and you want to give it to like your brother in Europe, or your brother in South Africa, or your brother in Indonesia, the best way to do that right now is to buy Litecoin. And I'm not being like completely impartial and biased here, but literally, you could buy Litecoin or Dogecoin, $5,000, or Bitcoin if you really want to be, but you're gonna give up a little bit more, right? buy cryptos basically, and send that to our brother in Indonesia. He say he only needs $5,000, right? He wants that money. He needs it to survive. I'm going to send him $5,000 in Bitcoin. Uh, and then they can convert that immediately into the currency of choice, right? So like that's the best way right now in the world to transact over borders. It just simply is. The other way is to go through 15 different checkpoints along the way to verify that you're not a terrorist, to verify that you're acceptable, that he's your brother, you're your brother, everybody's legitimate. And then they report your information to the FBI and the IRS and all these other entities. It's like these like subsidiary entities. And then meanwhile, the middlemen are just taking these cuts along the way. So now when, if you use traditional like wire transfer, like why would I do that now? Why would I even do that? Like I only have a little bit of money, right? So if I was in Africa and I was trying to send some money from South Africa to Nigeria, there's not really a good way, even in Africa, like that. This Bitcoin's a solution to Africa's problem of money, right? Of delivering money and receiving money and communicating with the currency, because it's so scattered. It's a perfect candidate for why Bitcoin adoption is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's the giant Asian hornet, you guys. And no matter how the bees tried to prevent this from happening, if they get the scout, maybe they could like, they can have a little bit longer, but eventually the whole other rest of the hive is coming for you. Okay. And it only takes, these things are massive. Like you can't really, it's a weird metaphor. I keep going back to it, but you know what? That's what's going on tonight. It's a pretty weird day. Let's jump right into the charts, you guys. I just want to say that the Litecoin Bitcoin chart right now, we're still having this massive breakout for Litecoin. We are in this trend right here that we could reach a 0.2, so 2% of a Bitcoin by the end of, by the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, I think we could reach for Litecoin at least 2% of a Bitcoin. And I do actually believe that Bitcoin and the rest of equities and stuff, we're gonna have this crazy crash, you guys. So let's look at Bitcoin for a second. The king ding-a-ling of coins, right? Like you got to look at the king if you guys are going to analyze any other thing, right? So this is on the weekly, you guys. This has been a pretty aggressive bear market in general. We haven't really had these relief bounces that we've had before. So that is very interesting. And we're still getting this kind of sideways chop, descending triangle after kind of descending triangle here. The charts look like we're headed to like, intermediately this 14,000 and then ultimately this $12,000 point kind of coincides with like this heavy accumulation point on the volume indicator here. I think, the majority of Bitcoin's volume, if you look at the VPBR, is, on this like this $12,000 line right here. So, and this kind of coincides with, this trend line as well. So I think what's going to happen, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do use charts, and thank God for all the people that taught me, and, Bukowski's charting guide. If you guys are interested, I will go through Bukowski. He was, he's the one that basically was inspired me to start trading, along with many other YouTubers back in the early days of crypto that I'm sure are doing very well right now. I appreciate you guys. I wanted to do things for myself. I wanted to get news for myself. I was so tired and am continually very tired of mainstream media dictating what, what the news was, what the narrative was. And I just like to follow the charts because I make more money following the charts than I do listening to news, right? And the news is always a day late, dollar short. And I honestly believe that you guys got to learn how to trade charts, learn how to read charts. That's like probably fundamental to any narrative, right? Because I can tell you that, like, based on the charts right now, we have a very good possibility of coming down, at least in crypto land, for Bitcoin to come down to 12,000. That means that, Litecoin is going to have this, like, probably break down to like, 50, it might even go as low as 45. And that shouldn't scare you, right? Like that shouldn't scare you because these events are short-lived, but we should need to take advantage. Crises are the opportunity, right? So like buy when there's blood, buy into that weakness. And it's super hard to do. And if you can train yourself to do it, and then you are going to be so wealthy in this life because everybody and their mother is selling while you are just buying, and like you're like the 3%, right? So be the 3% because they're going to buy this dip, right? The 3% are going to buy this crazy capitulation dip. And I'm fully expecting a dip here, and I'm expecting the dollar to actually have this, rip. And like we're looking at the dollar and it's starting to get this little bit of this is actually a bullish formation, and so I do think we're going to have this, like, we're breaking this kind of formation. You guys, I can draw it for you. We're having this, downward trend. And now, bam, we're popping up out of it for the first time. So at least the dollar is going to have this like intermediate rally to probably, like, if it can clear 110, we'll have this conversation, right? So like, I'm going to actually move this. I'm going to move this a little bit up here. Okay, so I think it's going to maybe do something like that. It might get up here all the way to this line, maybe not. This is kind of worst case scenario that it breaks out here. Okay, if the dollar breaks out here, you guys, all other assets and equities, everybody's 401k is going to hell in a handbasket. So I wouldn't, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. The Fed seems pretty hawkish right now, but they are also doing exactly the wrong thing right now by raising rates and not, this is when you need to be decreasing rates and turning on the money printers again if you want to save this thing. So do I think there's a better system? Yes. Do I look forward to the end of the old system? No. Okay. This is going to be really hard. The good news. Okay. So let's go over the good news right here. The Dow Jones this is actually a pretty bullish formation. As long as we've actually broken out. Okay. We've retested, and now it's possible that we have some continuation here. So this is the bullish scenario, you guys. I would recommend always be in the market. I'm always in the market. I don't know if whether or not, sometimes I'm shorting, sometimes I'm longing, sometimes there's a part of my portfolio that I just hold, right? And I'm an investor at that point. So I'm not always all the way in, all the way out. So I like to be in that middle ground and play the cream filling, as Jay Beasy would say. So I shout out to Jay Beasy, all my homies. Thank you, my subscribers. This is also not financial advice. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody out there. I'm doing this for you. I hope you get something out of this. Silver right now is having a breakout. It's actually pretty impressive right now that we haven't broken down here. This is actually a bearish formation, surprisingly or not. And I'm expecting, this touch on this $25 mark, possibly. And then, a breakdown to the bottom of this triangle, possibly even as low as $18. If this actually happens, I'm preparing for that $18, but if this thing breaks out, I'm okay with that as well. So recommend getting physical, you guys. Don't, deal with the real deal if you're dealing with metals. Let's go to the S&P, you guys. Because the things that I'm worried about in life right now are there's a few things that I'm actually worried about. The life right now is pretty crazy. News is pretty crazy. The regular media is pretty crazy. I don't know who you guys believe. I don't really care. I'm a chartist, so I believe that the charts will tell us what the news is going to be. So S&P right now is still in this. It is actually a bullish formation, a downward descending wedge right this. We probably will break out, but the possibility that we come all the way down, to this bottom of this wedge at 307 is actually pretty real. We haven't really seen capitulation yet in stock market. We haven't seen people fleeing out of this thing. Let me go back to the 1929 here, you guys, because this is, if you really want to look at it, this chart actually got me into charting, and it gets me excited just because I love history and what's going on in the world. And we'll go to the monthly here and look at this wedge, you guys, we're in. Okay, this goes back to 1929, the Great Depression. So this is Great Depression. And then after the Great Depression, you guys, we had to wait 8,800 days, which is 30 years, okay, until we broke even again. Okay, so when investors flee the market, when they realize that possibly something like this is going to happen and we're going to go to a new system, and even a pull down to let's just say that this goes from the top of the wedge to the bottom here. This is a 68% retracement. Okay, where we are right now, this is where we are right now. We're still so elevated, you guys. And I think this is happening the first or second quarter of next year. Okay. Maybe it might even go into 2000. It might even be the beginning of 2024 at the latest, but we're going to have this pullback, you guys, on the Dow Jones, at least, probably to the bottom of this triangle, or the bottom of this wedge. I'm sorry. And then it's going to go sideways, right? It's going to go sideways, slightly up, and then you're going to have this period of, I don't want to say it's going to be 8,000 days, but even if it's this shows that's basically 8,400 days. So that's 25, 30 years, you guys, in order to break even again, right? So sell now. Right? These companies are the big whales are going to sell when they realize this thing is going to fall off the face of the cliff, because the Fed has just destroyed the system at this point. And it takes 16 months for their decisions now to affect us later, right? So when they pivot, it's already going to be too late, because the ball has been set in motion, and they're trying to play this up and down wave game, right? And do we raise, do we tighten, what do we do? And at this point, inflation, they're trying to get inflation out of control, but at the cost of the rest of the economy. So you guys got to be safe out there. I think that's all I really wanted to go into tonight. I'm sorry this video has gone on pretty long. Salute from California. We're about to get hit by a crazy atmospheric river right now. I'm battening down the hatches. I recommend you guys batten down the hatches. Happy effing New Year to you guys. Salute. Litecoin. Lawton. Out. Buy some Litecoin, by the way. Out.